The restaurant the movie begins and ends in was called the Hawthorne Grill, located at 13763 Hawthorne Boulevard, Hawthorne, California. Shortly after filming wrapped, the building was demolished, and at the time of the making of this video, an AutoZone sits on the property. Vincent's car in the movie was Quentin Tarantino's car in real life, a 1964 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu convertible, and it was stolen right off the set in the middle of production. It's unclear whether or not they filmed all the scenes they needed it for before it was stolen, or if they had to improvise after losing access to it. Everyone figured it was chopped up and sold for parts and never to be heard from again, but 19 years later it was found in 2013, and the unwitting buyer, current owner, had put upwards of $40,000 worth of work into it. Pulp Fiction was selected for preservation in the Library of Congress National Film Registry in 2013, the same year as Mary Poppins and the original Magnificent Seven. The movie had a budget of $8 to $8.5 million. Adjusted for inflation to 2025, that'd be about $18.4 million. And the most expensive part of that budget was the $150,000 that went into creating Jackrabbit Slims. And that's about $10,000 more than they paid Travolta for his role. Because John Travolta already had a pretty good reputation as a dancer in some of his movies, between Saturday Night Fever and Grease or whatever, Uma Thurman was allegedly pretty nervous during the scene where she had to go dance with him.
John Travolta is known for some pretty legendary dance scenes.
He is.
So the pressure was on me.
And part of their little performance was copied from a dance routine in the 1963 movie 8½. Jackrabbit Slims was never a real restaurant, but after the film's success, Harvey Weinstein thought it would be a good idea to turn the franchise into a real chain, but Tarantino shot the idea down. When Vincent first arrives at the Wallace house to pick Mia up for their not a date thing, if you look closely, one of the doors is slightly ajar. The film crew did this intentionally so the cameraman wouldn't be caught in the reflection of the glass. When Vincent calls Lance to let him know he's coming over with an emergency, he's eating a bowl of cereal. And this stuff was probably stale as hell, because this is a little Easter egg Tarantino threw into some of his earlier films. A box of Fruit Brute from the Monster cereals line by General Mills. Fruit Brute, spelled correctly Fruit, was discontinued in 1982, making this box of cereal over a decade old at the time of filming. And when Fruit Brute was relaunched in 2013, it underwent a name change, spelling it Frute. The script says those sickos from the pawn shop, Zed and Maynard, are brothers, but this is never explicitly stated in the movie. I always thought they were just depraved friends. Tarantino has created somewhat of a connected universe for his movies. For example, Vincent's last name is Vega.
Some Vegas in the house?
Well, he's also got a character named Vic Vega in Reservoir Dogs.
Vic Vega's outside.
And these two guys are brothers. And once upon a time, Tarantino had a spin-off film in development titled Double V Vega. But this was supposed to be a prequel to both Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. And by the time it was really coming together, both actors were too old to play younger versions of their characters, so the entire film was scrapped. And in a deleted Reservoir Dogs scene, when they can't turn to anyone else, one of the guys suggests they go to a nurse named Bonnie.
The time being a factor, I call Bonnie. I'm leaving myself very fucking vulnerable with this Bonnie situation.
It's strongly believed this is the same Bonnie who's married to Jimmy, so maybe she's not as innocent as we believe. Another pseudo-example of this would be Kill Bill Volume 1, who some people believe the plotline is close enough to the basic premise of Fox Force 5, mostly because they both star Uma Thurman as a character who's good with knives. And while Tarantino did put together a summary for Fox Force 5 just so that Vincent and Mia would have something to talk about over dinner, he never created a full storyline. Although he has said in interviews he'd love to write and direct a full movie based on Fox Force 5's pilot. He just hasn't done it yet. And another inspiration for Fox Force 5 might have come from the book we see Vincent reading throughout the movie. It's called Modesty Blaze, an action-adventure novel with the main protagonist being a female spy. Oh, and the working title during production for the 2020 movie Birds of Prey, another film with strong female characters, was Fox Force 5. While taking the order for the $5 shake at Jackrabbit Slims, the waiter asked Mia how she wants it.
How do you want that shake, Martin and Lewis or Amos and Andy?
What he's doing is referencing two comedy duos of the time, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, and Amos and Andy from the Amos and Andy Show. But really what he's doing is he's asking her if she wants vanilla or chocolate, because Martin and Lewis were white guys and Amos and Andy were black guys. Most people know the Ezekiel 25:17 Bible verse speech that Jules gives someone before he pops a cap in their ass was a real chapter and verse, but it doesn't exist the way it actually does in the Bible, and is more of a fictionalized or paraphrased version. What it does is combines elements from the real Bible verse with dialogue from a 1973 Japanese martial arts film called Karate Kiba.
And they shall know that I am Chiba, the bodyguard, when I shall lay my vengeance upon them.
And what's funny is 20 years later, when Samuel L. Jackson played Nick Fury in the Captain America Winter Soldier movie, while standing at his grave, we see the headstone and it reads, "The path of the righteous man, Ezekiel 25:17. A pretty cool callback. And speaking of Sam Jackson in his little speech, before we see him deliver it for the first time to Brett, he flips the table over. This was totally improvised, and the actor who plays Brett, Frank Whaley, had no idea this was going to happen, so his reaction was genuine. And so while he was caught off guard by surprise, no one was shocked enough to break character, so they just continued shooting the scene and got this whole thing in one take. But they obviously had to do a few takes for the cheeseburger bite dialogue, because when Jules picks the burger up, it's full and untouched. But as he puts it to his mouth to take a bite, there's definitely several bites already taken out of it. According to IMDb, the word fuck, or any iteration thereof, including but not limited to fucking, fucker, fucked, or motherfucker, is used exactly 265 times. Now, I didn't personally comb through the movie with a counter, but let me tell you, some of the things on IMDb are not that accurate. The script only has 169 uses, and it's uncharacteristic of a Tarantino film to go too far from the script, but somehow an additional 96 F-bombs doesn't seem that far-fetched. The first place it appears is on the first page, and the last place it's heard is on the second to last page. And if the movie really does have 265 F-bombs, at the 154-minute running time, that'd be 1.72 every minute. But if the movie really only has about 169, using the script as a blueprint, that figure'd be closer to 1.09 F-bombs per minute. Anyway, while Tarantino's screenplays match his movies close enough, plenty of things still change. Instead of the movie's title card for the Bonnie situation, the script has it called Jules, Vincent, Jimmy, and the Wolf, and there are two typos, both missing spaces, one between Vincent and Jimmy, and the other between the ampersand and the. And instead of accidentally shooting Marvin directly in the face, in the script he gets shot in the throat. And in the movie, while jotting notes about who he's about to meet on this job he's going for, Wolf puts black and white in parentheses for Jules and Vincent respectively, but in the script, he calls Vincent Dean Martin. And the Wolf drives a Porsche in the script, but in the movie he drives an Acura NSX. The Porsche makes more sense to me for handling its speeds required to drive a 30-minute distance in 9 minutes and 37 seconds, but an Acura is a lot more common and an inconspicuous choice. The bartender at Marcellus's bar calls himself Paul in both the movie and the script.
My name's Paul, this just between y'all.
But we get more information from the screenplay with his real name, listing him as English Dave. But whatever his real name is, apparently the line stuck well enough that in the credits he's listed as Paul, not English Dave. The name of the bar itself is Sally Leroy's, a topless bar near LAX. And when first described in the script, there's a typo calling it a bat instead of a bar. John Travolta ad-libbed the line, "That's a pretty good question," after Uma Thurman asked why it's necessary to talk about bullshit.
I don't know. That's a good question.
His scripted line was simply to reply, "I don't know." And there's another pretty humorous script typo here where it says "shit the fuck up" instead of "shut." The marquee outside the venue says Coolidge vs. Wilson, which could be seen as a reference to US Presidents Calvin Coolidge and Woodrow Wilson, especially since in the script his name was changed from Willis, Floyd Ray Willis. There's of course no official explanation as to why they changed the name from Willis to Wilson, but my guess is it was to avoid any audience confusion because that's Bruce's last name. The line, "You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris? They call it a Royale with cheese," was voted as the number 81 of the greatest 100 movie lines of all time back in 2007. But in reality, the sandwich isn't called a Royale with cheese, it's called just a Royale cheese. And it's odd to me they don't translate cheese to the French word fromage. So a super literal translation would be Royale du fromage.
Fromage.
But perhaps the reason cheese is left out in English is for branding, as Royal cheese is what a quarter pounder is called in Belgium, Croatia, and Cyprus too, not just France. In German-speaking Europe, it's called a Hamburg Royale. In Russia and Ukraine, they called it the Royale cheeseburger when the movie was new. And in 2016, Russia started calling it the Grand Cheeseburger. And in Hungary and Poland, it's called a McRoyal. In the credits, you'll see a special thanks shout out go to Steven Martinez, painter of the portrait of Mia hanging in the Wallace home. And another special thanks goes out to Jennifer Beals, who back in the early 1990s while Tarantino was still making a name for himself would let him stay at her house when he needed to. When Mia and Vince are sitting in the car and she calls him an Elvis man,
An Elvis man should love it.
it makes sense based on his appearance alone, but it would make more sense if they never removed a scene that was filmed right before they leave the house, where Mia does a light interview session and says there are two kinds of people, Elvis people and Beatles people.
You're definitely an Elvis man.
And knowing this helps it make more sense at the end of the movie when Jules calls Pumpkin the Thief Ringo.
Now, Ringo.
As in Ringo Starr, meaning Jules is calling him a Beatles person. Butch's family heirloom watch was originally purchased by his great-grandfather in Knoxville, Tennessee. And when he's getting off the phone talking to his connection after the fight, we hear he's Knoxville bound. It's assumed throwing a nod to Knoxville, Tennessee is Quentin Tarantino's way of paying homage to the city he was born. And besides his grandfather's watch and talking to his boy Scotty on the phone, there's one more Tennessee reference. A license plate hanging on the wall of the pawn shop, numbered CAC 308. And there's another license plate on the wall of the pawn shop, numbered SW4913. This is a reference to the Smith & Wesson 4913 pistol. If you look closely at the shirt Jimmy's wearing under his robe, it looks like a globe head kind of character. This is the logo for Orbit, an alternative newspaper in Detroit. Tarantino did an interview with them to promote Reservoir Dogs, and they were so thankful they sent him a care package that included this t-shirt. That's how he got it. A lot of people who made the cast were considered for other roles before ultimately landing the part they got, and multiple other actors who didn't make the cut were at one point heavy contenders. The part of Vincent almost went to Alec Baldwin and Denzel Washington. The part of Jules almost went to Lawrence Fishburne and Eddie Murphy. Tarantino wanted a real boxer to portray Butch, so the part almost went to Mickey Rourke, but he passed on it to pursue his boxing career. Others considered were Nicolas Cage and Johnny Depp, and both Cage and Depp were also considered for the part of Pumpkin. To play Winston Wolfe, Al Pacino, Danny DeVito, Christopher Walken, and even Sam Jackson and John Travolta were in the running. Sam Jackson was also considered for the part of Marcellus Wallace, as well was Carl Weathers. And Mia Wallace could have been played by Marissa Tomei, Patricia Arquette, or Jennifer Beals, who I mentioned earlier. Instead of Christopher Walken playing Captain Coons, that could have gone to William Dafoe or Robert De Niro. Kathy Griffin is one of the witnesses of the intersection pandemonium between Butch and Marcellus. Phil Lamar, who plays Marvin, and Julia Sweeney, future owner of Monster Joe's Truck and Tow, who by the way in real life was married to the guy who played the Gimp, but they divorced the same year the movie came out, all of whom cut their teeth at Groundling's improv school. As of 2025, and I hope this bit of information changes someday and becomes super useless, but despite all the projects Jackson and Tarantino have collaborated on over the years, they've never since Pulp Fiction appeared on screen together. They both had parts in Django Unchained, but they didn't share any scenes. And to this day, playing Jules is Jackson's only Oscar-nominated role. The movie playing on the TV in the hotel room when Butch gets back after the fight is called The Losers from 1970.
What is this you're watching?
A motorcycle movie. I'm not sure the name.
When Marcellus talks about torturing the guy with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch,
Go to work on the homes here with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch.
That line was inspired by the 1973 movie Charlie Varick.
Strip you naked and go to work on you with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch.
The first time we see Butch, the camera sits on him for 1 minute and 55 seconds before he says his first line while he's listening to Marcellus's off-screen speech. And we never get confirmation of exactly what's in Marcellus's briefcase, but the yellow-orange glow always led me to believe it was gold bars. And something most people never notice is when Vincent and Jules are taking out Brett, the same yellow-orange glow flashes on the screen. This could potentially represent a dark divine intervention, blessing, protection thing, the miracle Jules talks about later.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it.
And right before this, while Brett is still trying to de-escalate by asking Jules his name, he tells him his name is Pitt.
My name's Pitt, and your ass ain't talking your way out of this shit.
It's possible this alias was chosen because Jackson co-starred with Brad Pitt in Tarantino's movie the year before, True Romance. By the way, the actor who plays the guy on the couch, Flock of Seagulls, and the actor who plays Zed have the same birthday to the year, October 8th, 1965. Back at the Wallace house when Vincent and Mia return from Jackrabbit Slim's, she's wearing his coat the whole time, except for one close-up shot where she goes to light her cigarette, the jacket is missing. While stripping down to be hosed off in the backyard, Jules takes his pants off first. But then as he removes his shirt, you can see he's still wearing his pants. When Butch returns to the apartment he was supposed to have left behind to retrieve his gold watch, we can see from across the street it's a 2-story building, but once he enters the courtyard, it's a 3-story building. So obviously this scene was filmed in different locations. A couple items change place in Butch's hands as he escapes the pawn shop. When he grabs the chainsaw, he's got the base in his left hand and he holds it on top with the right. But in the very next shot, his right hand holds the base and his left hand is on top. Then while he's outside, he looks to his left hand holding the key to Zed's chopper. But in the close-up shot, this is definitely his right hand. Then, after telling Fabian to hop onto the chopper, Butch grabs the handlebars, but in the next shot, he grabs the handlebars again. The internet says Jules and Vincent should have been unable to return fire on the surprise attack from the bathroom after killing Big Brain Brett. The internet also says Jules' gun is a Star Model B 9mm pistol, which typically holds 8 rounds. And Vincent's gun is a 1911 A1 Auto Ordnance 45mm ACP pistol, which can hold 8 to 11. So when we see them prepare before going into the scene where they shoot Brett, we can assume they have up to 19 rounds between them.
We should have fucking shotguns.
Jules seems to empty his magazine because I count about 8 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't really tell because of the soft cut to Vincent with the flash I pointed out a bit ago, but you can hear 11 distinct shots total. But assuming a margin of error if they shot at the exact same time and it sounded like 1, let's say between the two of them as many as 15 shots were fired. That still leaves them with 4 shots. These two are supposed to be professional hitmen. They all but unloaded on this one man, but Vincent should have between 0 and 4 shots left, and Jules should either be empty or maybe have 1 left if we're being generous. So when the guy barges out of the bathroom to shoot them, they do have enough ammo left to fire back. We hear 3 shots, but see 4 on his sweater. So debunked. What is funny though is why there are already bullet holes in the wall around Jules and Vincent before the 4th man enters from the bathroom. You can't say they were already there because they weren't while Jules intimidates the boys, and you can't say they're from Vincent because he has better aim than that. Seems more like a retake after the wall of the set was already damaged from a previous take. And you know, they went through all that trouble to retrieve Marcellus's briefcase, and then they seem to leave it at the scene of the crime. Both men's hands are empty before they exit the room. Honey Bunny's line changes between when they kick off the movie and finish it out with the restaurant robbery.
And I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you! And I'll execute every one of you motherfuckers!
Not to mention in the first scene version, she holds the gun with one hand, and in the final scene version, she holds it with both hands. And when Honey Bunny aims her gun at Vincent, she's holding it with both hands, but in the next shot, she's holding it with only one hand while her other arm stretches out nervously and awkwardly. And her and Pumpkin's lines were used in a song called Scooby Snacks by the Fun-Lovin' Criminals. On the topic of song samples, Cypress Hill used the Ezekiel 25:17 speech in their song Make a Move.
Lay my vengeance upon thee.
Not to mention the Fall Out Boy song Uma Thurman, which references Mia Wallace's dance moves. 20 years after the movie came out, Harvey Keitel reprised his role as Winston Wolfe in a series of Direct Line insurance commercials. Super critics say this cheapens the character, but I think they're pretty funny.
Coffee, Mr. Wolfe, lots of cream, lots of sugar.
Oh, thanks, Morag. I'll see you crazy kids around.
And when Captain Coons is given the history of the gold watch spiel, we get a close-up confirming the time is 12 noon on the dot. Also notice the little dial to adjust the time is on the right side by the 3. Standard, but the first time he holds up the watch, it's upside down and looks like it's reading about 10 after 10. The second time he shows it, it's still upside down, but we get a closer look, and now it's reading 11:45. And then a few seconds later, we get the close-up of 12 noon, so the amount of time passing doesn't add up. But the amount of time passing that does add up is how this video was 20 minutes and some change. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know any cool bits I missed. Like, subscribe, share, watch the next one YouTube is recommending to you right now, all that stuff. And I'll be back as soon as I can with more content. So until then, stay cool and always keep punching out there. Aloha.